We are live. Doug Fowler here broadcasting from the undeclared capital of South Central Missouri, St. Robert, the gateway to Fort Leonard Wood. I am sitting here with Virginia Staabs. Staabs, how you pronounce it? Was that make sure I get your microphone going. Now take a test talk.
Hello there.
There we go. Now we got you loud and clear. Now, what kind of what derivation or where does that name come from? Staabs.
It's German.
German, from the
My
Deutschland.
husband's family was from Germany.
Awesome. Does we know what town?
No, we're having a little trouble with that because I believe his dad was adopted, and nobody knows a whole lot of that.
Right. We spent 4 years over there and had a great time. But anyway, I'm here with Virginia Staabs here, Democratic candidate for Senate District 16.
16.
It's a pretty loaded field too. So.
Oh, I know.
Well, it's going to be competitive, and it's been held hostage by the Republican Party for the last ever. Yeah. So you got your job ahead of you for sure. Let's learn a little bit about you. Let everybody know who you are. You're running for Missouri Senate, but before that, who is Virginia Staabs? Walk me through how you got to here to Missouri.
I was born in Illinois.
Right.
My sister a few years later in Wisconsin. Both my mom and dad were from California, and so we moved back there. And I spent most of the rest of my life in California, a few little trips, a little while in Nevada, a little while in Texas. I left California after getting divorced and watching my household income drop by 75%, realizing I couldn't live in California anymore, and started looking for where I wanted to go. Had a friend move out here. I came to visit her one weekend, and went, boy, this feels like home. This feels like the California did when I was young. So I moved out here, not realizing that I have a lot of family that is buried here. My mom's side of the family spent a lot of time in Missouri in the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's what brought me out here. I have 2 kids that are still in California. They like it. They're not planning to go anywhere right now.
Right.
And 5 grandkids.
Wow, that's awesome. All local grandkids?
They're all in California.
Oh,
so
really?
At least one trip every year out there.
Well, that's awesome. Well, it's hit the good weather state anyway. Now, Goose looked up, found Porterville College. Did you go to college at Porterville?
I did go to Porterville College.
General studies?
Yeah, I thought about doing childcare,
right?
That kind of stuff. So I took a couple of classes in that, which meant I had to take a couple of psychology classes.
Right.
And then I worked with the drama department, as I did also in high school. So.
All right. California. I've been there for the Army, but my wife's been there more than I have. You've had many chapters. You're on a tax preparation business. You've held or do you hold a notary commission?
I still hold.
Sold Magnabilities and doTERRA products.
doTERRA, uh-huh.
And what's Terra products?
doTERRA is an essential oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a good glow right now. It's probably showing up quite nicely on there. Yeah, it is. I'm looking at the screen. What you guys are seeing in the reflection? Yeah, powder it up. And also, more importantly and applicable, what we're doing today is manage the local election news page. What is that about?
So, What's Up in Missouri Elections came about because as I started to figure out that this state doesn't provide us with much information about who's running, what's on the ballot, and what you can find is very slanted towards what the legislature wants you to know.
Sure.
I decided that would be a good way for me to help educate myself and then the public as to what was out there.
Awesome. Does it get a lot of traffic?
Off and on.
Yeah.
Off and on.
Which chapter of your life right now, if you used to look back, what shaped your politics the most?
About 3 years ago, California has its issues.
Don't we all?
But California is as Democrat as Missouri is Republican. And one day I was looking at things and I went, it's not the party. It's absolutely not the party. It's the majority. When any party is such a majority that the legislators no longer have to worry about doing their job,
mm-hmm.
they don't.
Right.
And that was probably the biggest turning point in how I thought about politics.
Do you see that happening today in Missouri?
I see California Republican side
Right.
in Missouri right now.
Because I know we'll get into that a little bit. What's been going on behind the scenes, late at night votes and stuff like that, and no voices being heard, and just the painfully transparent
Lack of transparency,
and similarity to the SAVE Act, which is we'll talk about in my opinion, the way they trying to go about trying to sell something we don't really need. In my opinion, and Goose and Jack back me up on that. Those not knowing Goose and Jack, they are the executive producer and my technical writers who are taking naps. You're starting out. You filed pretty late in the game. Of course, we did the MEC filings and we hit them all. We're not done yet.
Nope, I know.
So you start.
You last night.
Yeah. So how did you like that?
It was interesting.
Good.
The thing I thought was the most informative was less the actual dollars,
right?
But more the history of some of the filings.
That's what Jack was telling me. Jack and I got a couple of assistants named Claude, and one has his initials are AI, but we work together. Some call me using AI. Yeah, of course I use AI. I'm not stupid. I can't.
It's a reference point. It's not the end.
It's not the. That's right. And I've got Parkinson's, so on my right hand I can't type. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to use every tool I got available to fill this noggin up. But that's what I kind of figured out. So you and you're not the only one starting out from scratch. I see Miguel's kind of low on the budget right now. Yeah. But I thought it was really interesting. What I was most digging at for the Senate campaign was the big money, where it's coming from. Is it local? Who's got the ability to pay $10,000 to a campaign manager in Branson that's not even from here? What does that do? And where do I get some of that? No, I'm just kidding. Most of it right now, but I can say is probably self-funding.
No, actually.
You got some donations. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I had a couple of more local to
right.
Senate 16 larger donations
right.
In the past month.
Now, does the local party and the state parties help you out?
So local party and state party, as part of the whole system,
mm-hmm.
cannot endorse or support unequally candidates before the primary.
Okay, gotcha. So if you make it through the primary, which you will, obviously,
right.
then you get a little boost in the budget.
Yeah, and then it isn't always necessarily money. Sometimes it's in-kind kind of assistance, which is okay too. Any kind of little bit helps.
Oh, sure. I got to tell you the difference. My straw poll, you won it. Fair and square, I had a little trophy you were walking down the AI thing, but that was legitimate. I pulled out there who would win it today if you voted, and you won it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Realistic budget, 5-person race for the seat that hasn't gone blue in years. We just talked about that. I had 17 questions. I wrote them up, and they were so good, and we started talking about them. So you go on to question 6. Name three things you believe that the Senate District 16 voters will actually agree with you on, regardless of the party. 3 things you think they'll agree with you.
That the current legislators aren't listening to their voices.
Right.
That they're being lied to because the information that they get isn't always factual, and that their pocketbooks are starting to hurt.
And it's just starting.
Oh, yeah. Not that they weren't hurting a little before, but it's starting to get worse.
Now, I would name one thing you believe that they will never believe in the Senate District 16, no matter what your campaign budget or whatever. That's a tough one.
I think that people in both parties will probably have trouble with some of the facts that come out about what's going on.
Sure. Let me ask you, and this is a personal opinion of mine, but some of the things I've been observing is very frustrating. We were talking offline a little bit. You could have proof in rock, stone, tablet etched by the deity of your choice in front of you. And some people will look at this, that's not there, that's not right. And no matter what the spelling, what in your mind would drive somebody to be like that, regardless of party? I could tell you here, it's right here, right? It's word for word, same language I'm speaking. You've seen it happen.
Well, and that's a little different for everybody.
Sure.
But um, if you watch what they're doing to the Bible,
Right.
it's the same thing. You get different groups of people say, this is what the Bible says.
Right.
And you have another group that's arguing with them over what the Bible says.
That's not what it means.
Yeah. So a lot of it has to do with how they were raised and what they were taught. And a lot of people don't open their minds to the possibility that what they knew isn't true.
Right.
And those people will change or they won't change. And we have to deal with them in whatever manner helps them to be comfortable with what is changing and where we are.
Goes back to Dave Letterman episode with talking about Bill Clinton. What is the definition? Is and I can relate to that. It's not you used to go to church and stuff like that. And it used to be key arguments on 2 words. That's why we have there's 8,800 different denominations of Christianity in America right now.
Yeah, and they talk about this was built as a Christian nation. No, it wasn't, because most of our founders weren't Christian.
Right.
A lot of them were more Puritan, and they came over here because the Church of England, which was Christian, was forcing their beliefs.
Right.
So we are open to all religions.
Right.
The morality that they talk about with the Christian religion, the be kind to others, those are in the Bible for every religion.
Right.
And so it's not one religion. It's that number one, love your neighbor as yourself.
Hey, have you ever seen the series John Adams on HBO?
No,
Oh, it's one of the best series ever. It's a famous actor. Maybe the wife will text me it, but if it's on HBO. It was so good I actually bought it. But it's talked about the original framers of the Constitution and the dialogue and the venomous nature they took after each other. They didn't want the church stuff in there and they want the religious stuff, and some of them didn't. But it was supposed to be one of the most accurate representations of the first founding fathers, how they came together, and John Adams being the key character. And then they had this great character that played Jefferson and his beliefs, about religion and stuff like that. All right. Abortion. We talked about this a little bit before we store short, and usually I would say Amendment 3 or, nothing so terse, but just to get people's attention. Boom. Abortion. Let's get it out in the open. How do you plan to talk about it in Richland and Waynesville? Well, let's go back to what's your perspective. Said? Yeah. Nobody heard.
When Amendment 3 was on the ballot in 24, there was a town hall debate on Amendment 3 here in Pulaski County. And when I realized from listening to our representative that the legislature had rewritten the definition of abortion to something that doesn't match the medical field or the federal government, that was a huge eye-opening thing as to why we were having so much trouble with this debate, at least part of it. Because the health care that they said was still happening can't happen if the definitions don't match.
Sure.
Because I can't bill the insurance if that's not what, it doesn't work. And my personal opinion is I would hope that people would find another way than abortion for an unwanted pregnancy. However, the definition of abortion, as people immediately think of it, isn't always what's going on.
Right.
A miscarriage, medically defined as a spontaneous abortion. And I'm watching other states put laws in effect to investigate and charge with murder mothers who have a spontaneous abortion.
I read about that.
Like they're going to be able to figure out if it was something she did or not. We haven't been able to do that in decades at this point. Any medical care should be between the patient and the doctor and the family if asked,
Right.
because those are the people who it affects the most. And we're quickly moving away from that,
Right.
especially in any type of female health care. I see that in every time I go to the doctor, you know, a little bit more changes and a little bit more gets more difficult and a little bit more prescriptions change. And I don't notice the same thing on the man's side.
Right.
When we start talking about having more trouble getting birth control pills, but they'll prescribe Viagra.
Day in, day out, 24 hours a day.
So I can see a double standard that had gone away for a while. It's back.
You think that's part of some members of the House and Senate, the representatives, state and federal level, trying to legislate morality?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you think that's the place for it?
No,
Okay.
Because people's religion,
Right.
whatever it is,
Or lack of.
legislates that morality.
Right.
And I think that the government's job is to help make sure that people are taken care of,
Right.
that the country in general is safe and able to protect itself, and that we're able to watch out over those who are less fortunate.
The weakest and the most needy.
Which all of that follows right along with what's in the Bible, no matter which Bible
Right.
you read.
I think it's actually in the Quran too.
And I believe so,
Yeah.
although there are people who have argued that with me,
Yeah.
but I don't have a copy of
Yeah.
the Quran yet to take on that.
I've read bits and pieces of it just for general knowledge, but thank you. I appreciate your honest answer on that too and how you stand. Session priorities. You win the Senate. You spent all this year and you're fighting through the weeds and the wheat and the chaff, and you come up on top. And the Missouri legislature has spent an enormous amount of energy on social issues, transgender legislation, book bans, DEI restrictions. Is that the right use of session time, do you believe, or what would you do what would you substitute it with if not?
No, it's not. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion are things that we were doing before it had a label, before people even realized what they were talking about. Those are very, very old concepts. You want diversity in everything because everybody's opinion matters.
Right.
You can't come up with a solution if you don't hear from everybody. Equity means everybody at the table.
Right.
Everybody has a fair shot at getting to the table. And inclusion, they all tie together because you're including everybody, no matter what, because everybody's affected differently. So no, we shouldn't be tying that down and saying that anybody who fits into our individual definitions is no longer included.
Right.
And no. So now what were the other two?
Oh, ominous.
I know.
Book bans.
Oh.
That's
Some of
awfully like 1984 to me. If those don't read the book, if those don't know it. And David Wall, you can leave the session. I don't know who you are. You're not my kind of person. I don't need your kind of attention. Just unplug, go away, do something else with your life. You're not the kind of person I want watching. I don't know who you are, but you're not my type. Book bans.
just because you don't like a book doesn't
Right.
mean it's not helpful to somebody
Right.
else. Now, do I move it to a different shelf in the library?
Right.
Do I put it in where we have to verify age before it gets checked out? Those are concepts that would be worth talking about. But to ban them and burn them or to get rid of them in any form like that, I think is incorrect.
Goes back to legislating morality.
Mm-hmm.
And who's responsible it is are actually the teachers, the librarians, or the parents.
Right.
You know.
The librarians and the teachers pretty much know the books that are in
Sure.
the library. They know if a child should be getting parental permission to read it or not. You know, parents are the ultimate people who should be making those decisions for their kids.
And just like with the medical care provider, you can talk with the teacher, talk with the librarian, the school staff. I got you.
Now, parents sometimes in these days, and I'm going to tell you, I was part of that generation
Yeah.
that could have used a little more help. but sometimes we need to help educate parents as to how to handle different things, because with families spreading out instead of being all together like they used to be, it's not as easy as it was then.
I've seen the videos of what these teachers go through. And I mean, now don't get me wrong. There's on both sides of the argument there, but they do. That's a lot of work. It's a job I don't want.
Yeah.
I don't want. Genuine Democrat. This is an interesting question. Goose wrote this one up. You're running as a Democrat in one of the most Republican Senate districts in the state. Is that a genuine ideological identity or a strategic, or is it partly strategic? Or would you have run as an independent if the ballot structure would have allowed you and had the time to get the signatures and all that?
For a while in my life, I think I thought I was independent.
Right.
And I know that party theology, for lack of a better term, changes over time. But right now, and from what I have studied on the different parties and how they've changed over the years and where they sit right now, it's Democrat.
Right. Okay. Because other elections, I've talked with some friends who were running for office, and I tell them, "Why don't you just run as independent?" Well, I want to run Republican because I am, but I know I could get on the ticket if I ran Democrat, but I'm not a real Democrat. That's an integrity issue, and I appreciate you just saying I am a Democrat.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Brand problem. Missouri Democrats have a brand problem in rural areas that's been building for 20 years. In your opinion, what caused it?
A brand problem. So there are a lot of branding problems with Missouri. We let people get away with calling it misery.
Yeah.
But then when we do, we don't tell them why they're wrong. We have a lot of beautiful areas, a lot of interesting things to do, a lot of old towns to visit that are just quaint, unique, good places to stop and stay and spend a couple of days and relax. We've done nothing outside the state of Missouri to make that something that wants people to come in, see, stay, and possibly move. I moved here because when I visited, it felt like home. And that's the way people are here for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
They make you feel warm and invited. But individual people sitting in their house can't do that if we don't get help bringing people into the state so that we can see all the great things that are here. I mean, St. Louis has a draw, Springfield has a draw, Kansas City has a draw. But the rural areas have draws too. And we have to find a way to get those people to come and see us and visit us. And then we have to convince some cities to decide that certain kinds of growth are a good thing.
And certain are not.
Right.
Yeah, the casinos and such, in my opinion. I mean,
they
bring money, but
you have to be careful where you put them and how you deal with them.
Sure. As long as there's steps and procedures in place, but are you tying that analogy with the Democratic Party? Exposure, people get to know the party. Because I say, I hear this right in Missouri.
Yeah.
I'm only voting Republican. Why? Well, I've always voted Republican. My daddy's vote. It's like the Chevy argument in my family was for my grandpa drove a Chevy. I'm driving a Chevy. But why? Well, Grandpa drove a Chevy.
Yeah.
I got to drive a Chevy. Well, Grandpa was a Republican. We've always voted Republican. And
there is a lot of deep family ties
right.
with party, with vehicles, with where you live and what you do. A lot of the times, so long as you can have a conversation with somebody, you can reach certain common ground. Can I get them to change to vote Democratic? I don't know, but I'm going to try.
Right.
And the one thing is, win or lose, I'm not going anywhere. My voice will be here no matter what, and my voice is here to amplify the people that I am representing.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Tax structure. Oh, near and dear. Near and dear in my heart. Little sneaky tricks going up there at the House and the Senate. You're a professional tax preparer, unusual for a legislative candidate according to Jack and his research. Walk me through how you'd approach Missouri's tax structure from Jefferson City.
So I think they're jumping the gun right now.
Right.
I think that in states that don't have an income tax, they have other forms of income that replaces it. And I think in this particular time, they should have gone to what are we going to do to bring in other income before we talk about getting rid of income tax? Because the way they're going to get rid of it, the calculations that several economists have done,
And Missouri's own board of whatever that business is.
means that in the county of Pulaski, we could see upwards of 20%
Good.
sales tax by the time you add all the little goodies onto it.
Now, how's that going to affect a single soldier versus a retired colonel just retired from as a GS-15?
Well, let's take it to a different level. Grandma and Grandpa have lived here all their life.
Yeah.
And they're living now on what little retirement they got, plus Social Security. And most of Social Security is not income taxed.
Right.
So they're going to go from not paying a whole lot to paying 20% on everything that comes out of their check.
Including services.
Including services, everything. You pay for something, it's got sales tax on it. So the people that are going to get hurt the most by what's going to be on the ballot
Right.
this year are the people with the lowest income because they paid the least amount in income tax.
Right.
The retired people, especially those who were small business owners, and the people whose income by itself wasn't taxed very much for income tax.
Right.
And those are the people that are working in your a lot of older people are still working because they're already struggling. And we're not doing anything to help them, and they can't, afford any more than they've got. So if I'm going from not paying income tax because the structure says that's what my tax rate is based on my retirement, to now paying an additional, that's a huge increase.
Right.
Even if it goes up what they're saying, which would take it to about 12%, that's still that's still 4% more than what we're paying here now.
I just don't like the way it was figured out. They just like here's I use the analogy of the SAVE Act.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in the White House said, "Well, we need to do this. Illegal voting, it's terrible. It's everything's corrupt." And every one of the followers in that party went, "You bet, we got to do this." Now, there's been one record of legal voting in Missouri in 30 years, if I remember my numbers right. 30 across the country in the last, however.
And of those 30, the Heritage Foundation did a study. Of those 30, most all of them were people who, there are some cities in the country that say, if your student's enrolled in our school, you should have a vote in that election. And they did not realize that they couldn't vote in some elections. So they crossed those off as not being fraud. In over 2 billion votes, they found 7.
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
And we're going to create all this extra paperwork and extra cost for 7 out of 2 billion.
Right. And I firmly believe it's just because somebody said so. There was no analysis, no research.
And let's go take a step back to the Real ID. When the Real ID concept came out over 20 years ago, I was living in California. And the first time I got my license renewed, I walked up. What do you need? Oh, we don't need any. We already got your birth certificate. We're good. We'll convert it. Okay, cool. When it came out the next time I had to renew it, it was, oh, well, we've changed the rules and now we need this and this. Okay, leave, come back, get this and this. The third time they had changed the rules again. And I went, forget it, just give me a regular license, and got a passport.
Right.
Do you know a passport is now easier to get than a real ID?
And by mail?
Yeah.
I'll be damned. Oh, we can't vote by mail. Wait, you can if you're the president, you can.
Look at all the people that cuts out. There was
Yeah.
even a discussion about not allowing overseas servicemen
Yeah.
to vote by mail. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. It's fixing the problem that isn't broken.
That doesn't exist.
And that's the same thing with this income tax. It's not a problem. If somebody got the bright idea, in my opinion, look at Tennessee. Oh, we can bring so much money. How much money can we bring in? Well, we don't know yet. But we're doing all this, and they want us to just sign over our responsibility and trust the House and Senate currently, who are occupied by Republican-led, to just do the right thing.
So, years ago, Missouri passed what was called the Hancock Act, which meant that anytime there was a change in tax rate, a change in new taxes, the people had to be asked about it. If you read this income tax swap act, you find that we're forfeiting our right to have the state come to us when they want to raise it or change it. It will give them unfettered ability to raise the rate whenever they deem necessary or to add additional taxes. So they're taking away a right we voted for just because it's going to be easier for them. And Missouri has a habit of not listening to when the constituents vote for something and overturning it. 17 times in the last, I want to say 10 years, but that date might be off.
And both of our representatives voted for that. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that. It's on record. And I watched the debates at the Senate, and I watched the people stand up. They just shouted down. There's no logic. It's all emotion and appeal. The government wants it. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not even right. It'll ruin the economy. It's going to hurt people's life. That's all right.
Well, and they talk about Tennessee. Tennessee's budget isn't all that great.
Right.
They're struggling. Kansas did the same thing. They damn near went bankrupt.
Yeah.
You have states like Texas and Nevada that don't have tax.
Yeah.
Nevada has gambling.
Yeah.
Texas has oil. They have other things that make up that difference.
We don't have that. Video lottery. Switching gears. Live issue right now in Missouri. Real stakes for a county at Fort Leonard Wood. Where do you stand on expanding gambling in Missouri?
Very cautious.
Right.
Very, very cautious.
Prudent.
I've known people who have had gambling problems.
Right.
And we don't have the support system in this state to help those people who want that help, which is not a good thing. I mean, if we're going to give them something that could cause a problem, we ought to have something when they figure out that it's a problem and they need help.
Right.
I don't personally like the I can sit at home and hide in a closet and keep my addiction in, unknown.
Functional addict.
Yeah. But everybody has the right to make mistakes.
Sure.
But I think that as a government, we have to be aware of where those can happen and do what we can to make sure that we have the ability to help the people who figure out there's a problem.
For those that like the thought of legislation lading morality on the idea of abortion, they sure don't want to legislate against gambling. Money? All right, we'll leave that by. That's Doug Fowler, and Doug Fowler said so out loud. You live in Richland, not Waynesville, not the county seat, not in the town closest to the base. What does Richland specifically need that it's not getting currently? If you were, you could.
Richland, so one of the reasons I moved to Richland and not one of the larger cities is I like having the quiet. I like having the open, not everybody staring in your windows all the time trying to figure out what's going on. Not that anything is, but but I like that calm and quiet atmosphere. Um, Richland could use a little bit more business. And I know that that's partially a lot the job of the people in Richland. But changes to the way traffic runs make a difference. And I know that when parts of the highways changed, some traffic now goes through Lebanon where it always went through Richland. So we've seen a decrease in that amount of traffic. So if you're coming from the south part of the state, you get off in Lebanon to go to the lake. If you're coming from the north part, you get off in the south. So we lost some traffic there. Right. And we just need to figure out how to get it back. And that may entail money. That may just entail people working together.
Without losing its small town appeal.
Right.
That's one thing I do like about Richland.
Yeah.
Got the small town appeal.
Oh, absolutely.
Talk about Fort Leonard Wood. Drives much of this district's economy. Mm-hmm. Functions like a weather system. It just touches everybody. What's your current relationship with installation, if any?
My only real relationship with it is I occasionally get out there and do notaries, and I know people who live there, and I hear pros and cons.
Okay.
I know that it's always in a state of flux, but that matches what the federal government's doing.
Sure. Now, how would you advocate for it from Jefferson City in a manner suitable for a state senator, not someone that thinks they're not?
So every installation has a purpose.
Right.
So long as we can define any installation's purpose, we should use that installation for the best purpose that it's been defined for. So if being the training base for chemical.
Right.
And that's the best bet we have because of distance and the way we can protect the environment, and then that's what we should do. We should build that up, and we should, move anything else that's similar to it out here. Out in California, I lived near China Lake Naval Air Station, and it is one of the best areas for training for desert.
Right, been there.
So you don't want to mess with that because we don't have a lot of desert where there's already bases. And you have to recognize that when they build bases, they put stuff in the ground for different types of training, ordnance.
Sure.
And if you were to try to convert it to something else, you end up with a lot of space that you don't know what's going to happen 30 years from now to the groundwater.
Right.
And so we can protect some of that by maintaining it as a base and using it for its best purpose.
Okay. Would you agree with me to say that part of the responsibility also is to enable the the groundwork, the community surrounding the base to better enable the base to do its job, to take away hindrances, obstacles to the base doing the best it can do at the state level?
Yeah, I mean, we have, and I understand it's gotten worse.
Mm-hmm.
Parents come to watch their kids graduate, but because of federal rules, they can't get on the base. Our community doesn't really have an area that they can meet and greet near the base that will encompass enough people in one location to work in a combined effort. That would be an awesome thing for us to do, to have,
Okay, great. You might have seen my comment about this, but it's a genuine question. But I've noticed a couple of the MAGA or Wright representatives at the federal level bringing up the term Doge again. Bring back Doge.
Why?
We won't even touch that. And I got into it with one lady. And we won't call her name on this, but we'll go back to that a little bit. But Doge in Fort Leonard Wood equates cuts at Fort Leonard Wood.
Yes,
it doesn't say anything about plus if it's always cuts. What's your worst fear about the reemergence of that term that has failed to demonstrate anything but failure?
First of all, cuts can only come if you've done the investigative work beforehand to figure out what is
Right.
good and what's not. You can't make cuts in advance and say, oh, this is what I see. As we've looked at some of the things and talked to different people who were a part of Doge, they didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
They cut things because the title didn't make sense to them, including nuclear engineers.
Can you imagine how many acronyms that needed translated for them coming generated out of the Pentagon?
So I personally, having looked at some of the things that Doge cut, don't think they did us any good at all. I think it was more harm than good.
I've yet to see a study to show any good was generated out of Doge. All right, I was curious because right now I don't think the hiring freeze on Fort Leonard Wood has been going on since ever, for at least over a year, other than the exceptional or whatever really needs to be done. So it's got to be making an impact.
And they're still spending money growing things out
Sure.
there, but they don't have people to sustain it.
Right.
And that's not helpful either.
No. The news page conflict. You are on the What's Up Missouri elections. You've been covering this race as a commentator while also running in it. How do you square that and reconcile the two?
One is strictly facts,
Right.
and one has my opinion in it.
Right.
And I work really hard on the strictly facts to be just strictly facts. Because even before this, I worked very hard not to take a side, just to present facts. And sometimes that's hard here. So I also like to have somebody read it beforehand,
Sure.
just before I post it, if I'm working on something that may have opinion attached to it.
I almost always try to use a disclaimer. It's my opinion. You can take it, you can leave it, you can throw it away or treasure it, whatever you want to do with it.
And that's why with that particular one, I try very hard not to have my opinion in it.
It's probably pretty hard to get the facts anymore.
It's not easy.
Because
I mean, you almost have to know history
Right.
before you can determine if something like, I didn't like the income tax issue to begin with, but it wasn't until I started digging into it and realized the things that we'd be giving up that had nothing to do with tax dollars.
Right.
And that had to do with learning about when the Hancock Amendment was done and exactly what it did more. So it's no surprise to me that many people don't fully understand what's in what they're voting on.
But they take the other people's word for it as gospel. Just because of the party they belong to.
The other day, actually had a conversation with somebody on the 2024 Amendment 3. And, I'm glad they overturned it. All that trans stuff that was in it. And I looked at him, I says, there wasn't any. And he goes, oh, but I says, there wasn't any. It was one page. What was in it was what was in it. None of it had anything to do with trans. Really? But I know they said. But they didn't. They were trying to get you to vote no for it instead of
That's
yes.
like the litter boxes in school bathroom.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
There are some seriously ill people out there. That's Doug Fowler's opinion. Last question. You did an excellent job. I'll give you kudos. Thank you so much for coming with us today. Every candidate tells me what they'll fight for, but the business in the Senate is bogged down with totalitarian behavior by the one party in charge. It's been so for 20-something years. If you win, what's your plan to actually accomplishing anything in a House so red or in a Senate so red in Jefferson City?
I've been accused of being obnoxious because I ask questions. That would be the first step.
Right.
The more questions you ask, the more people figure out, wait, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, or wait, maybe I need to go find that answer. That's the first step.
Yeah.
The second step is continuing to tell people, even up there, that you're up here to amplify the voices of the people who elected you. Not your conscience, not your desires, not the governor's wishes, the people who elected you.
I actually did the research on our incumbents right now, and if it was at the very low single digits, if one or both of them ever voted against the party, ever. That's not politics. That's
Yeah. I'm getting ready because I've had to coordinate with 6 counties,
Mhm.
not just
sure,
here.
sure. It's a big stretch.
I'm getting ready to roll out coffee house type events in every county, and that's the one thing is there's a lot of areas where we're closer to each other than we are far apart, especially if we sit down and talk. And having those conversations doesn't mean that there isn't a Republican item
Right,
that I would not vote for.
right.
But it would have to be something that the people in the district have overwhelmingly said, yes, we know that goes against your parties,
Right.
but this is what we want. And this is why we feel, after being educated, that it's good for us.
Okay. You're willing to listen.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think it's lacking so much in our current state of affairs. Well, that wraps us up for question 17.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming by. Now, I talked to Miguel. I don't know if you watched the episode with him.
I did. I got to watch it afterwards. I was busy at the time.
We had a great conversation, as was today's, and I'm hoping you'll join me when I do finally schedule the roundtable with you and your co-patriots in the Democratic Party that are running for office. We'll just have a roundtable. It might be virtual. It might be here, depending on how we can make it work. And I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I think so, too.
And what I would hope to get the most out of it is to educate the viewers on exactly who are the Democrats. It's kind of like, they're not evil. They don't bite the heads off children. Just because they're blue doesn't mean whatever. So, but anyway, we thank you, everyone, watching at home and later at night. And if you have any questions of Virginia, hit her up on her campaign page, and I'll put it up on the link. It's all over the place. So, but if you have any questions, hit me up, and I'll send you the link to her campaign page if you want to ask her questions and stuff like that. And look forward to having her back on with Dr. Slider, Miguel, Tara out of Dixon, you. That's about it.
That's it.
That's it. I can fit you in here. So I got enough microphones and headsets. So until then, we'll see you then.
All right.
We're logging off.